for our grand finale now. Wonderful that it is. For more than 4 decades, Patricia Phelps de Cisneros has fervently supported education and the arts with a particular focus on Latin America. In the 1970s, along with her husband, Gustavo Cisneros, she founded the New York City and Caracas-based Fundación Cisneros, whose mission is to improve education throughout Latin America and foster global awareness of the region's heritage and the many contributions it has made to world culture. The Colección Patricia Phelps de Cisneros, CPPC, is the primary art-related program of the foundation and has been a critical component of Mrs. Cisneros' effort to enhance appreciation of the diversity and sophistication of art from Latin America. The CPPC promotes scholarship of Latin American art and works to preserve the study of the material culture of the Hispanic world, ranging from the ethnographic to contemporary art. Its activities encompass exhibitions, loans, publications, support for scholarly research, and artistic production. Mrs. Cisneros herself supports a wide range of cultural institutions in the Americas and Europe, and since 1992, she has been a trustee of the Museum of Modern Art. She's a founding member and chair of the museum's Latin American and Caribbean Fund. She's a member of Harvard University Art Museum's Visiting Committee, a founding patron of CIMAM, the International Committee of ICOM's Museum Collections for Modern Art, and an active member of the Latin American Acquisitions Committee of the Tate. She's also a founding patron of the Fundación Museo Reina Sofía in Madrid. Mrs. Cisneros has received numerous awards, not surprisingly, among which are the Great Cross of the Civil Order of Alfonso X, the Wise, of Spain, the Leone d'Oro di San Marco of Venice, the Cross of the Legion of Honor from the Republic of France, the Americas Society's Gold Medal, the Gertrude Vanderbilt Whitney Award for Outstanding Patronage of the Arts, the Skowhegan School of Painting and Sculpture, Maine, and the Iris Foundation Award from Bard Graduate Center. She's also received Decorative Arts, Design, History, Material Culture, and New York, and an honoris causa degree in the Fine Arts from Wheaton College, Massachusetts. We are privileged indeed to be able to welcome Mrs. Cisneros here and to close these wonderful, wonderful 2 days of immersion in the story of collecting the art of New Spain and Latin America with her conversation with Edward Sullivan. So with that, we'll get that going. And thank you very much. Welcome.
Edward and I have a surprise. He's actually a very good tango dancer. So we thought that instead of having a conversation, we're going to do a tango. Okay? So. What happened?
Oh, well, I get and we had it all perfectly planned. I have been going to classes, but anyway. But we have another surprise, and that is a series of images of some things that you might be surprised by because they represent the vastness of what the Cisneros collections are. And so we'll be on a bit of a loop while Patty and I have a conversation. And actually this symposium, as I said yesterday when we were speaking with Roberta and Dick Huber, was in part a pretext for us to talk with our friends. And I can't think of a more dear and more lovely and sweet friend than Patty Cisneros, who I've known since probably the late 80s. But it was not until 2001 when I saw a huge collection of the work. Of course, much of this work, especially from the geometric abstract aspect of their collection, has been in many exhibitions, and of course I knew about it, I'd seen it published, I'd seen it in exhibitions, but it was at Harvard where I was invited one day by Jim Cuno to go to see the exhibition at the Fog of the Cisneros collection. And then I realized, I think it was the first time I realized that what Mary Carmen had called a canon change, or I don't know if you used that term exactly, but a change in our ideas, our concepts of what Latin American art is, has really taken place. It was at that moment that I realized that all of the things that I had been thinking about, my colleagues had been thinking about, and museums were beginning to start to investigate, represented a shift from what had been a popular conception of Latin American art as fantastical or dramatic or colorful and strictly representational. All of those things being important and having their place, but represented only a very partial aspect of the story. And it was really this collection, and I think that you have to take credit for this, as although many other collectors have been looking at and buying, but you, Patricia Phelps de Cisneros, with the foundation that you have organized with your husband Gustavo, and the generosity that you have been able to spread literally throughout the world and show this collection is really something that is a beacon for collectors, for museums, and for scholars. And I have learned so much from looking at your collection, from talking to you over the many years, from working on projects that relate to work that you collected. And that is really the basis of a huge debt of gratitude that I want to express to you personally and collectively. I'm sure everyone in this room will join me in saying the same thing. You don't have to do it verbally, but I think I represent everyone in expressing that. So with that being said, and are we having these images go on a continuous loop, or do I have to just press and start? And actually, I'll just press and not describe anything in particular, but if we want to start talking about things, oh, there we are. So these images will actually lead into my first question. And that is that many of us know very well the geometric abstract art. It has been shown very often, and we'll talk about where and how people react to it in a moment. But what I would like to ask you, Patty, is first of all, the geometric abstract collection is only one of many facets of your collection, because you have the Colonial Collection. People in this country may not know very much about the extraordinary collection of art from the Amazonian region. You have the Contemporary Collection. Of course, you have the collection of abstract geometric art, and also you have the magnificent traveler painter artists in Latin America. And some of these are in your apartment, some of these are in various exhibitions. There will be, I'm sure, a wonderful exhibition at Hunter College next year of the 19th century traveler artists, or even from earlier eras. But I was curious to know if you could tell us what of these collections, if any, lies closest to your heart, and what is, they all represent a personal view of your collecting patterns, but maybe you could tell us something from its histories, how you develop them, and what really lies at the core of your sensibility. And I think we share, oh no, we both have a microphone.
Thank you. Would somebody raise a hand who Edward has not always said something nice to? Anybody in that? Thank you. Thank you, Inge Reist and the Center for the Study of Collecting. I think it's a great idea to be doing this. I'm glad that I was not able to come 2 years ago so that I could be here today with all our Latin American colleagues. Thank you, Edward, for your friendship and your guidance throughout the years, and thank you for all the speakers here. I was particularly happy to hear Esty remember Barbara Duncan, who really was one of the great pioneers in all of this. I got a little teary there. Yes, our collection, most of you do know the Geometric Abstraction collection, but the collection consists of 5 different aspects. One, which all have a connecting
thread?
A connecting thread, thank you. And it's basically Gustavo's and my absolute pride of being South American and our great desire to create bridges of understanding of Latin America towards the rest of the world. This has been our guiding principle. You'll see in the 5 collections I'm going to describe briefly, I hope, also our deep desire to preserve our heritage. In the case, there are 5 collections. The first one I'm going to describe briefly is the Audino Co Collection, which is of 12 ethnographic groups of the Venezuelan Amazonia. All of these collections started as family enterprises, family trips. All our families have been involved in all 5 of them in one way or the other. In the case of the Audino Co Collection, Gustavo and I spent about 30 years, every 2 years, organizing expeditions deep into the heart of the Amazon, which is very difficult, and living with the different indigenous communities. And as the years passed, we would return to cities, to towns that we had not been back in several years, and all of a sudden started noticing that the basketry was now being woven with artificial colors, that the beads were artificial beads, that the fish hooks were no longer carved of bone, but they were made out of aluminum, that the cooking pots were no longer made by hand, but bought in some remote town, some remote village, they were made out of aluminum. And we realized that the white man cometh, and that all this history was going to be lost, this part of our heritage, and I personally have tremendous respect for the indigenous communities of the Amazons, the ones that I know. They have, more than anybody in this room, they live in absolute harmony between their spiritual life and their everyday life. So anything we can do to help preserve our memory of these beautiful people, we try to do. So that's the Audino Co Collection. It's been traveling for about 12 years in basically South America and Northern Europe, and has been seen by over 8 million people up to now. It was at the World's Fair in Hanover, which accounted for about 2 million right there. But and there have been about 8 PhDs that have come from it, and certainly great respect and understanding of a culture that's very, very difficult to reach and to access. The second collection I wanted to describe, and you're seeing in this loop here, is our Colonial Collection. And that was, as we were talking before about being global, in the colonial times we were very global due to the geographic location of Venezuela. We were really in the crossroads of new ideas and new customs and new objects and traffic, and from Asia, from Europe, from the United States, from Africa. And the Colonial Collection is quite interesting. It consists of furniture, which was considered quite avant-garde for the time, painting, silver, and then mostly from the Philippines, as the Hubers were saying yesterday, the works made out of ivory. That collection also was made systematically because we were afraid that it might be disappearing as well. The idea of collecting systematically, I attribute to my great-grandfather, William H. Phelps, who was a quite well-known ornithologist, scientist, Harvard graduate, and the only case in the American Museum of Natural History where he was a trustee and also a scientist. We had his office here as well. And so I grew up with him, seeing how he would categorize his birds and how he really, he collected in a very intelligent way. I think that's where this came from. The next collection, Gustavo and I have enjoyed throughout the years, and also did not exist. I don't know if other people are doing the same now, is our landscapes of traveling artists, which of course is fascinating to see how these artists viewed this new world that they approached with such curiosity, from the
artists from the Hudson School, as well as the artist from especially Germany, they were, and France. The next one is our collection of geometric abstraction, which for me, the origin is probably that I was privileged, and this dates me, but to grow up in Caracas in the 50s, when it was one of the great centers of modernism. I don't know if Luis wants to dispute the concept of modernism. We'll do that afterwards. But just going to school, you would see giant works by Gego, by Soto, by Léger, by Vasarely, Cruzies. And I've always said that the modernism is in our Venezuelans' DNA. And so that collection, I think, became that way. None of these collections started out as a collection. In this case, we were a young married couple. We enjoyed being surrounded by beautiful objects and were able to have them. And the collection just started organically. And it was only years later when somebody asked me about a collection that I said, a collection? And from that day on, the collection was no longer only a joy, but also a great responsibility. And then finally, we have our contemporary collection, which has been our daughter Adriana has embraced vigorously. And of course, it is today, it is the future. I consider these artists to be the harbingers of things to come. And I think we need to listen closely to these artists in order to understand what we're doing. Now, having said that's sort of a brief description of the 5 collections. What's been fun, just one more thing about that, is when there are wonderful connections that can be made between the 5 collections. And one anecdote was a conversation with Maestro Soto. A year before he died, Maestro Soto was born in Ciudad Bolívar, which is in southern Venezuela, surrounded by these indigenous communities. Oh, I don't know if I mentioned that since we began that collection of saving these ethnographic objects, 2 of those communities, the Hopis and the Hachis, have disappeared. They no longer exist. But in any event, the maestro was born surrounded by these pieces. And you will see in this looping one of these baskets. They're called guapas, and they're very optical. And he played with these. There's one right there. And he saw them. And so I was asking the maestro, I said, do you think this might have influenced the way your art later? And he said, Patty, I've always thought of that. Could be something interesting. And we actually started to plan a small show of the guapas of the Yacuana, of the Yanomami Indians with a Jesus Soto. So, and like that, I could go on and on about all these things. So anyway, I hope that answers your question about
It does indeed, and I think it ties in so well with what we've been talking about through the entire symposium, and that term, whether you like it or not, global, I think applies very well here, because you have been looking at and analyzing and collecting, whether you first called it that or not, things from many time periods and many civilizations. So I think that it makes a package which is multivalent and immensely rich. Now, that immensely rich series of objects has in one way or another been seen in various museums and various venues in 3 continents, or 4. And you have sent the Geometric Abstraction Collection, for example, has traveled widely in the United States. It's been at the Fogg at Harvard, at the Blanton Museum here in New York. I've seen it also in numerous venues in Latin America and Mexico, in Sao Paulo and Buenos Aires. It has been in Europe, it has been in Madrid, and will shortly be at the Royal Academy. So I'm prompted by that to ask you something about reception. When this collection travels to different places, do you have the sense that it is received in a variety of ways, or does it touch people in a different way in Spain as it does in Argentina or as it does in the United States? Do you get any sense of how people react to it according to their own cultural baggage, as it were?
I don't think we can measure exactly how people react to objects. It depends on your mood of the day. It depends the context in which they're being shown. I think might take 10 or 20 years for us to know what the influence of a certain exhibition or certain objects can be. It certainly has happened often that you do see people look at a work and say, this is from Latin America. We've gotten away. I think that's a battle that has been fought. I think all of us know about my battle with trying to get away from that, to make sure that people know that the sophistication of thought behind abstraction, the message gets out there. I'm sorry.
Right,
I didn't
to
say that.
de-exoticize, I think,
Exactly.
what you've been doing.
Thank you. I
is
wish you
very
would
well.
continue with this talk, as a matter of fact. But we consider our obligation is to share with as many people as we can, to have them perceive the objects. And then one of these videos here is this movie by Javier Telles of this famous metaphor of the blind feeling an elephant. There are 5 blind men, and each one is touching the elephant and describing the elephant, and each one has a different perception, and each perception is valid. But when you get all of them together, you really get a better picture of the whole. But so I think we can't really, I don't dare say that we have affected one way or the other, because we really have no way of knowing, but it will come out. I think it'll
Right.
come out.
It'll come out slowly, but I think
In
one
time.
can see very much the effects in terms of large-scale collecting and exhibitions that your collection has, to a great extent, stimulated in this country and abroad.
Yeah, well, you do know we've chosen not to have a permanent home on purpose. We felt that being able to lend could be a much more effective way of having Latin American art known. And we're talking about 20, 25, 30 years ago.
Exactly.
But now we've started with, and as you know, with Geometry of Hope, which you were so wonderful to work with here at the Blanton with Gabriel Perez Barreiro, and who also curated it here, but you were so instrumental in allowing it to happen. I mean, you saw, I think you could almost answer the question. I mean, people were surprised and happy to think in Latin America in a different, and I like to say a more sophisticated way sometimes. But what we're doing now, since we don't have our own place, we're starting these pop-up shows. And you were the inspiration for the first one. You were teaching a class on abstraction in Latin America, and we rented a space at Crozier and set up for one day an exhibition for your students to come. And they actually manipulated some real Clarks as well, as I recall.
Yes, it was an extraordinary experience. It was a graduate course at the Institute of Fine Arts, and it was this mini splendid exhibition, and students had the amazing opportunity of close encounters with this art.
And then with a landscape collection with Professor Manthorn at CUNY, we also did the same thing. So her students were studying, there was actually 2 seminars on Latin American landscapes, which was fantastic. So they're able to come and study and do that. So we're doing this more and more. And just last week, we became a series. We started a series called The Viewing Room. And also, it's going to be in different places, lugares, in different places in New York. We had one piece we have by Lothar Baumgarten on last Saturday, and we had Lothar, it was on display all day. Lothar came in and spoke about this piece, as well as Alejandro Cesarco, the wonderful young contemporary artist, spoke of his. So it was sort of a looping day of Baumgarten. And it did very well, so I think it's a modality that I think we are going to continue.
Fantastic. So I have a couple of other questions, and one of them has to do with the fact that this collection is by no means inert. And it is a vibrant collection, and I am curious to know what, in your opinion, would you want to continue to collect, and how you would expand any aspect of the collections?
I think we have to be open to everything. Richard Armstrong is here today and has offered to, who's the director of MOBIA, the Museum of Biblical Art, and I never thought that I was going to,
Go ahead.
Okay. No, I didn't think we were going to be working together, but our Colonial Collection obviously has a very spiritual component to it, and can be, he was very interested in that, so we'll be showing that hopefully next year, but that just happened, so we weren't even planning on that. But I would say for going into the 21st century, we're starting to focus mostly on the digital world. We've, at the Reina Sofia exhibit, we did an app which was very, very successful. First time that an app has been done in Spain in concordance with a museum exhibition. And it's still being used in schools. We've, Art Store, we've partnered with, and we have 300 high-intensity images that they have. And just last year, 2013, over something like 1,300 requests were made to Art Store to view those photographs. So that was very interesting. But what we're dedicating now, most of our human capital and our monetary capital to is to a digital website, which is we'll be launching in 2 or 3 months. And it's going to be a center for all of you to congregate and meet and propose ideas and study, and a forum for discussions, and basically a digital think tank. And so that's more the direction we're going in right now.
Well, actually, that leads into the last question that I had for you, and this is, of course, coming from an educator. I have a great deal of interest in the fact that the foundation is not just about the collection or spreading word of the collection, but it is very dynamic in terms of pedagogy, promoting ideas, promoting knowledge, and you have many, besides the website and the digital aspects you just discussed, you have many other actually long-term education projects. And I remember very well that when the show, so beautifully curated by Gabriel, Geometry of Hope, came to NYU, we had many, many discussions with members of your colleagues, your staff, and the various educators from New York University about how to involve students and the general public in New York. You have been very much involved with publications. You've been doing this wonderful series, and I really want to emphasize how important it is, of conversations with contemporary artists. And so I think that these educational and publication programs, in a way, are unique to a private collection, and it serves to expand the purview of that collection. So I wondered if you wanted to just end up by talking a little bit about that, because I find that so amazing that you've been helping so many people throughout the world, and these projects are in different languages and appeal to many, many publics throughout the world.
Well, thank you. I think you've actually answered your own question. But you know, I just publicly want to say here, I'm very grateful and never could have done it without the support of my husband, and certainly Gabriel Perez Barreiro, our director, and Luis Perez Oramas, Paula Herkenhoff, Glenn Lowry's been a great inspiration. But going back to collecting, since we are in the Center for the Study of Collection, I would like to propose to everybody here today to start to think of a definition of what is a collector. I personally think that, and we know what's happening in the world today, so many people are buying art. So many people can be described as collectors. And I just find the concept of being a collector a bit dated, I think, but I don't know the answer. That's why I'm asking everybody to help think about this. When I think of just collecting, it's like a sense of colonial entitlement that the world is out there for your plucking, and you can be collecting art, you can be collecting beetles, I don't care. But it's just the concept that it's there for you to take. And I don't think that's true anymore. I think you have the responsibility, of course, of acquiring, but then you have it of broadcasting the information. I think of certainly restoration and conservation, documenting, education, as you already said, and then foremost is the respecting the artist. We haven't talked about the artist today, and it's that respect that I think we need to, I would like to feel that we're always considering that artist. It doesn't matter what a painting costs. Whoever created that work did it with the same, he poured his soul into that work. To consider that. So when you think of a collector, is that really the right word? Isn't there a new world happening? Isn't there something new to consider? I don't know. I couldn't I just had to bring that up to you. It's something that I carry with me and wanted to share with all of you.
Well, that's very interesting to wrap this up, because we began by talking about new canons and canon shifting in terms of taste and collecting, but this might be a new paradigm in terms of what maybe formerly known as collecting could be in the future. That things, in the best of circumstances, would be about objects, but they would also be about ideas and disseminating knowledge and being both respectful of the artist's, of his or her own creativity and persona, and that of all the people that this art is reaching, and try in the best way in which I think you are serving as a model for, to create a collection which is really more of a group activity and something which is serving to instruct and to edify and to share, because it is very, in a way, it's selfless. It's not all about you, it's about the people that you are serving.
He says it so much better.
I did not. But Patty, Gustavo, I think that we owe you a great debt of gratitude for those, both the great visual things you've done, but also for the enlightenment that you've brought in all of your programs to thousands, if not millions of people. So thank you very much, and also thank all of you for coming.
Thank you.
And now if you do the
I hate
tango.
you.